Hello, and welcome to the Teach Music 21C podcast series. I'm Merlin Thompson, the creator and founder of Teach Music 21C, a professional development program for music studio teachers where we highlight 21st century teaching tools and strategies, all with the goal of supporting our students on their journeys as lifelong music makers. And I'm joined today by Lorrie Merrell, a longtime piano teacher colleague and supporter of Teach Music 21C. Lorrie, thanks so much for joining in.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I always love chatting with you.
Well, I'm going to get things right underway by turning things over to you, Lorrie, because in a recent conversation, you mentioned something that I think our listeners would really appreciate about starting a beginner student.
Well, I was meeting with a mom and about a 7-year-old little girl, and I was just planning on doing the usual, this is my program, here's the schedule, this is what we do through the year, here's my fees, here's all of this. And then I just looked at that little girl and the 21C words came out of my mouth. And I said, what my goal is for your little girl is that she has music in her life for the rest of her life. And where will she be in 10 years? Where will she be when she's 17 and when she's 27? And what will music look like to her then? And then I think about what I can do now to keep that music in her life. So my teaching is shared curriculum. I like to do, I have the skills and the knowledge of how to teach her how to play well, but I also want her to choose songs that she loves and what's relevant to her and her life at this time. So what can we do to hook her into music to see what a joy and a love it is and how it can benefit her the rest of her life? And so I do 50-50, share what I can as a music teacher and take her on a certain path, but the other half is what she likes and what she loves to do. And I've incorporated that in the last 2 to 3 years of my teaching, and it has absolutely changed the whole heartbeat of my studio.
Sounds wonderful. And I can imagine that there was a period of transition for you. So moving from what you've always done to this new idea of shared curriculum, what was that like for you to do that?
Well, it was scary because, we get used to doing what we do and we feel secure on it. And then you start, dipping your toes in the water, in new water, and you don't know where it's going to lead or how you're going to approach it. And it started with a student a long time ago that came to me and he wanted to do popular music. And I'm not trained in that, nor have I ever played it. I didn't know where to take him. And, he kind of went off and did his own thing. He stayed in classical with me. But then 21C came and it gave me some knowledge and some I was braver to try it. And I started letting the kids bring all of their popular music and I'd look at it and I wouldn't know what to do. And I just jumped in and I found out it was wonderful. I had to learn a lot about the popular music and how to teach it and how to help them with chords and how they can add their own thing. And it was a transition, but every step of the way was positive. And those kids just flourished. They loved it. And it ended up with a concert of student choice where they sang and played. They just played. They had somebody sing while they played, and I just let them take it. And they just came to life. It improved our relationship. I got to know the kids better because I was let more into their world.
Yep.
And it was a wonderful thing. It was so positive.
So one of the things that I know teachers worry about when we go to a shared curriculum is, what am I going to do with all my skills and knowledge? How am I going to make sure I'm able to pass on all those things that I really value, that I know will help students perform well or learn better? What was that like for you in terms of how do you get what you have to offer somehow integrated into what they'd like to explore?
Well, I would think of the basics, rhythm, fingering, basically those two things, maybe just the feeling of the music and what do you want to say as an artist? What is this artist telling you? So I would try to think of the basics that I teach in everything and pull that over into the modern music. And because if I had done my job in teaching them well in this area of classical music, it came over pretty easily over here. So I think that classical music was a real foundation to build on. And that was what I was trying to do in the first place.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're creating that foundation in both places is what it is. And getting that foundation in the classical area, that's all really good. Getting things transferring over to this other pop area. And I appreciate you mentioned something, fingering, rhythm. For me, a big essential is beat. Everywhere, or tone production.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things aren't just strategies that we use for classical music instruction. Those are strategies that show up absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
And for me, it is that students don't necessarily come with the awareness. So I see what you're doing, and I appreciate what we've kind of highlighted in Teach Music 21C, is this whole idea of raising awareness. Across the board, across multiple genres of music, that all of these things are working.
Music is music. And whatever touches their lives is where I want to be with them, because that's what's going to keep the music in their life forever.
Yeah, and I like your expression you used early on, this expression of hooking her in. So getting students hooked in. And in the past, there was always this huge thing about, can we get the right pieces? If I can just get the right pieces, then maybe all my students will be buying into the process and we'll keep on going successfully for year after year. And for lots of students, that was an easy job. And then there were the few here and there that, you'd be looking for the piece, and you'd never find the piece. And the piece that worked with student A last year didn't work with student B this year. I mean, it was all that kind of stuff. Does that sound familiar for anything that you've had going on?
Yes. Some students loved bringing me music, and others were really hesitant. And I would just have to keep asking, and I'd have a little bit of a conversation that I really can't choose this for you. This has to come from you. So here are all these resources to find music. Anything you hear, if it's a commercial, if it's a jingle, find where it came from. Go to the internet and find it and bring it to me. We can learn anything you want. And some students I had to wait for quite a while, but I would just keep asking every week, did you find something? Did you look here? Did you look there? And eventually one student did this. I probably asked him for 4 months. And all of a sudden he just looked at me during the lesson. He said, I found something. And I said, oh, play it for me. And I thought, oh, this is going to be rough, whatever it is. He played the whole thing, and it was beautiful. And it was something I never would have found. I never would have thought of. And that's the case with every student. There is no way I could go where these students are and choose. So sometimes it took a lot of patience, waiting, but I was persistent. I kept asking.
Yeah, and I also hear what you're doing, giving them just an idea of where those resources are. Like you mentioned things like jingles and the songs off video games. And I love what you're saying about where do those songs come from? How can we find the music for them? And today it's just so easy. We go on the internet. We don't have to even go to the music store. You don't have to ask your mom or your dad to drive you. You just go on the internet and off you go. I'm curious about one more thing. Have there been any really big surprises for you in terms of where the directions that students go?
Well, I have a student that I started when he was just teeny tiny, and he wasn't a really strong reader, and I could tell that wasn't a really big direction, but he started just tinkering around and playing music at the piano. So I would just listen. Well, now he's a composition major, and he has a whole book of things that he just, and so when I have students come and they start just tinkering around and playing on the piano, I'll say to him, don't ever stop doing that, because great things can come from that. And then I'll show him like a little video or something of an excerpt. And I showed this little girl, and she came back the next week with this whole page that she had written. And it was just finger numbers with notes underneath it. She didn't know what to do with it. But I said, we have to sign and date this and put it in something special because this is your first composition.
Mm-hmm.
So playing around on the music is a great thing to do. Going on the internet, finding music that you love is a great thing to do. All of this is relevant to your life, and this is what keeps music in your life. And I can't imagine a life without music.
Yeah, it's a very important part of who we are as human beings. And I love that, you've just opened this door for composition to take place. And, composition for any teacher can be, if you're not a composer or improviser, can seem like that's a huge barrier. And what's the starting point? How do you get things going? But you tell us two examples of students who are already, they're just itching to find things. And all you need to say is, let's see where this goes. And provide them support with that. So it's really marvelous. So good on you for just being courageous and getting these kinds of things into place, letting students explore, keeping that goal of, what are students going to be doing 10 years from now or 20 years from now? It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the 21C course, because that's what gave me the courage. It gave me something to build on. And it has made phenomenal differences in my teaching, in my students' lives, in our relationship, in their music. It's just been a great, great thing.
Yeah, and what I appreciate about the Teach Music 21C curriculum is that we build on what teachers have already got in place. So what I hear you saying is that, lots of years of experience, lots of years of passing on skills and knowledge. We don't throw that out the window and start something completely different. No, that's all there. But it's all about what are the ways to take what we know and what we've learned as teachers and integrate that with where students are coming from. And making it meaningful for them and giving them the opportunity to really explore what it is that interests them about, their musical future as well.
Yeah. Yep. So keep what we have and keep moving forward.
Pretty fun. Well, this probably is a great place to wrap things up because what you've been talking about is a shared curriculum. It's only one of the curriculums that we explore. We've also got a student-led curriculum, a neurodiverse curriculum, and a teacher-led curriculum. And those might be interesting things to explore, to talk a little bit more about down the line, because it'd be great to have you come back and hear more about your teaching. But for today, I think we're going to wrap it up. Any last bit of advice for teachers? I know that move for you took a lot of courage, but also I can appreciate that you grabbed onto some really definite tools.
Yes. 21C was the tool to grab onto, and it is scary. It's scary to move on. But in my life, everything that I've moved on and taken a step that was scary, I have never regretted. It's always been a positive, wonderful thing. Maybe a few bumps along the way, but don't let fear stop you. Just move. Just keep moving.
Yeah. So there are going to be bumps moving ahead. Obviously, it's not just a smooth transition, but it's worth it when you get to that wonderful place where now this model is the one that feels the most comfortable. That model that you had before, maybe that's the model. Oh, it's interesting that we stuck with that model for so long.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm wrapping it up here. Thanks, everyone, for joining in today. I'm Merlin Thompson. We've been talking with Lorrie Merrell, longtime supporter of Teach Music 21C. This is the podcast series connected to Teach Music 21C. We'll hope to see you again next time. Bye for now.
Bye.